Colleagues, it's time for us to start. Oh my word. Good morning. Good morning to our members of executive management, our deputy vice chancellors in attendance, our executive deans, our heads of the departments, our distinguished guests, our colleagues and students. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tshwane University of Technology, and we are happy that you have joined us on this special occasion. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ntombi Zotwa Memane, a section head at the Department of Electrical Engineering, and it is my pleasure to serve as your program director today as we are celebrating the launch of a book on work-integrated learning. Work-integrated learning, colleagues, is more than a curriculum requirement. It is an important bridge between what students learn at university and what they actually experience in the workplace. When I was preparing for this event, when I engaged with the book, what personally stood out for me was that although the book is written from a human resource management perspective, but many conversations around work-integrated learning extend beyond a single discipline. And you will see that whether we talk about student mentorship, whether we talk about industry partnerships, or whether we are talking about developing workplace competences, many of us sitting here can recognize those conversations. And I think that is what makes this occasion more significant. Ladies and gentlemen, without any wasting more time, may I kindly request that we all rise for the singing of a national anthem. We are ready, DJ, for the national anthem. Thank you. You may be seated. Now, to officially open today's proceedings and welcome us all to this event, it is my privilege to invite our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Ben van Wyk, to come and give us a welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Prof. Ben van Wyk, the DVC DLT at the Tshwane University of Technology. So, and I'm saying that on purpose. So what distinguishes a University of Technology from any other or traditional university? What exactly is our claim to fame? The answer is that through work-integrated learning, we produce graduates who are work-ready and can immediately contribute in the real-world environment. Colleagues, if we lose this edge, we might as well close our doors and throw away the keys. We will then lose our reason for existence. So this is a very important topic. Work-integrated learning enables students to apply theoretical knowledge and technical skills in authentic workplace settings. Through structured exposure to industry practices, equipment standards, and professional expectations, students develop competence, problem-solving ability, confidence, and, very importantly, an understanding of workplace culture. It also helps students connect classroom learning with real occupational tasks, receive feedback from experienced practitioners, and build networks that may support future employment. It is therefore with great excitement and pride that we gather here today to celebrate the launch of this remarkable new book on work-integrated learning, designed specifically for human resource management or HRM practitioners. This guide is more than just simply a book. It is a comprehensive resource that addresses the most current, critical, and evolving themes shaping future HRM. In today's dynamic workplace, the role of HRM professionals has never been more complex and more vital. The workplace is becoming increasingly diverse and technology-driven, requiring organizations to develop new skills and adapt to unprecedented, never seen before challenges. This book expertly bridges theory and practice, enabling practitioners to lead with confidence and insight. Even though this book covers HRM themes, it also covers other skills such as teamwork, attitude, and communication. These skills, sometimes seen as soft skills, are crucial for any graduate seeking will placement or any job opportunity. Crucially, this guide places a strong emphasis on organizational justice and fairness, principles that are foundational for building trust and commitment within any workforce. It highlights how transparent governance practices and ethical decision-making not only protect organizations, but also create environments where employees feel valued, respected, and motivated. The focus ensures HRM practitioners are equipped to promote fairness at every level of the organization, when they engage WIL students or when they engage graduates. In addition, the book presents a forward-looking perspective on work-integrated learning graduates and students, recognizing them as emerging talent. Instead of seeing WIL students merely as learners or interns, this resource positions them as valuable assets with great potential to drive innovation and growth within organizations. By nurturing this mindset, professionals can build stronger talent pipelines and create meaningful development opportunities that benefit both WIL students and also employers. In my view, this book will become an indispensable tool for HRM professionals seeking to stay ahead of the curve, implement best practices, and add strategic value to their organizations. It is also a testament to the power of work-integrated learning, learning that not only happen when we are in a classroom, but the real learning that happens when real-world experience comes into play and into the picture. I would like to congratulate Prof. Maleka for this outstanding contribution. The depth of knowledge, clarity, and practical focus in this guide will undoubtedly inspire and empower HRM practitioners and WIL students across diverse industries. Thank you all for joining us in this celebration. May this book be a beacon of guidance and innovation for all those shaping the future of work. I really thank you. So now that the formal speech is over, I want to say something from my heart. In 2019, Prof. Maleka and I was part of a cohort of TUT managers that did the Agailia MBA. Part of that MBA was a thesis, right? Now the rest of us just wrote the thesis and got the certificate. But very like him, you know, like the overachiever that you always have in the class, he went ahead and converted that work into an excellent book. I encourage you to go and just page through this book, because you will see that this is not just a collection of, you know, past information or just a reflection. It is a book that is full of formulas and mathematics, which as an engineer, you know, I like very much. It's a book that took time to write, and a book that contains a framework that I think, if we adapt it even in any WIL environment, will dramatically improve the quality of WIL. So that's on a personal note, Prof. Maleka. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for such a beautiful message. Ladies and gentlemen, as Prof has indicated, we are not only gathered here to celebrate this book. This also creates an opportunity for us to reflect on how are we preparing our students. Maybe that's one thing that I will ask you to just sit with. Ask yourself, are we preparing our students for the workplace of tomorrow? Or are we preparing our students for the workplace that we know? Now, colleagues, allow me to move to the program and call our next speaker, Dr. Edgar Nesemamvuni, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Management Sciences. It's to come and give us message of support.
Morning, everyone. You can see me, ne? I always have to make sure when I'm standing in front of a podium. I think most of them were made in Norway or somewhere like that, or Sudan. Good morning, everyone. As the program reflects, it says I'm supposed to give a message of support. When this request came, it came during the recess. I did not know what is expected of me. I must come and say, my friend, I support you. Then I go back and sit. Then the program comes, there's 15 minutes. And I was thinking, are they sure they want me to speak for 15 minutes? Because I'm not the person that can do a script. You'll see a piece of paper, I'm just mising. It's just because I, like him, he had a prepared speech, speak from the heart. I speak from the heart from the beginning. And there is no filter. So you took a risk, my friend, so it's... So what I then decided to do was, how do I approach this message of support? Then I opted to share my experience with Prof. Malika, because if there's one distinction I will take is that if you don't like him, if you like him, I'm responsible for bringing him here. It all started in 2011. That's how far back I know him. I met him for the first time at an interview panel. First time, he's sitting and is asking for a job. He was a corporate bunny. I think you worked at Nissan, and then when you came to us during the interview, he was working for Eskom. So here is somebody coming from corporate applying for a lecturer position. So, you know, a lecturer advert says you need to have 3 years teaching and or industry experience. I remember that day very well. Fortunately, one of the culprits is here, Advocate Mrs. Young. So, HODs that are here, deans that are here, you will know that when you are interviewing a lecturer and there's a lecturer from another university applying, he will tick all the boxes like in bold letters. And here is somebody from Eskom. He was working at a learning center. I remember that very well. Now comes a time where we have to decide, who do we appoint? I think that gentleman from Val, I remember he was coming from the Val. Wherever he is up today, he's still asking himself, why didn't I get that job? Because the person we appointed is not a person that had a lecturing experience, but I recall convincing the panel to say there is an advantage of bringing somebody from the industry. Let's give this gentleman a chance. You remember that, Thomas? I'm not sure when he applied for a job, because Eskom was then said to be a well-paying company, whether he was taking a chance, and we then said we are appointing and said, oops, I must just go. Now, he comes to academia, no academic experience. I'm right, ne? He had an academic flavor because by then he was finishing off his doctorate. Then what did we observe after that decision? Because in essence, if you ask me, it was a risky decision. He came to TUT, he becomes a lecturer, and it was like you took fish from mud to water. Here is somebody who then started writing papers. So you can do the calculation. He started here in 2011. It is 15 years. If you look at his CV, 15 years, papers he has written, students he has supervised. Please remember, it's from ESCOM. Ne? I sometimes think maybe if we didn't take it, we wouldn't have had load shedding, but anyway, be that as it may. After coming, he's writing papers, he is supervising students, and that is not all. He becomes the academic manager of Emalahleni within a year. Then I'm thinking, let's pack him there. 2 years, you're HOD, ne? After 2 years. You hear him said yes. Always remember, everything I ask him and he says yes, remember he's from ESCOM. He became HOD. After that, other accolades he has achieved is that he is now, as he sits here, a campus rector. But because of that teaching, that supervision, that papers that he has written, as he sits here, he's an associate professor. Remember, he's coming from where? Yes. He is a head of a niche area. There are no niche areas in ESCOM. This is a span of 15 years. On top of that, he's the chief negotiator. Academic, but he's negotiating for management with the unions. That's where Thomas meets him again there. He doesn't have hair now. Unfortunately, it's thanks to you. So this is somebody, I don't want to say Skepsel from ESCOM. This is somebody from ESCOM who came to an academic setting fresh from not knowing anything about academia. And in 15 years, these are the things that he has achieved. Now, I want to go to my observation. Prof. Ben has already taken the cat out of the bag that this book came through from, I was also part of that cohort, first cohort of TUT that did the MBA from Hagahelia. Which group were you? What was your group name again? SOPTA. You see, serious things. My group was called Little Fun. The goofiest group in the team. We were, if there were times where they were putting names for noisemakers in the class, I will be the first on that list. And my group, as Prof has indicated, we were supposed to produce a mini dissertation, not even a dissertation, Prof. It was a mini dissertation. I'm observing him in the classroom. By this time, this fish is not just a tilapia, it's a dolphin. We are playing. I'm playing with my group in the class. They used to get very irritated with us. Part of our play, Shafika, lunchtime, we had a caterer. Lunchtime, the caterer will bring food and also halal food. They were not really clear what halal, the only halal they know was chicken licken. So, Little Fun, goofy group, lunchtime, first one. I'm not scared to be number one in the food line. I will go to the Bain Maries. If I don't like, I'm halal. I think she ran out of food some of the days because myself, Ingrid, I will call you out. I told you I speak without a filter. Nteboheng. If you short food, it was the three of us. So I'm coming to a point, sorry. So where I'm getting to is that at the end of the course, the goofy group decided we are not eating this junk food anymore. As Little Fun, we are going to Summit. All of you know Summit, no? We are going to drink cocktails. Prof. Ben, when we left that day, we went to drink. Why am I saying that? We said goodbye to the group. We are not eating your food. And unfortunately or fortunately for Vuyo, that day she had arranged for T-bones. We are going to drink. So when I said to them, we are not sitting with you guys, we are going to eat, I observed two things. Two people, they are sitting in front of me. The day we finished, this man and this man were done with their dissertation. I'm right, ne? You cannot deny that. I mean, when you finish a course, they give you time to do a dissertation. These two were done. With little fun, we are still going to collect data. So I want to now come to the point where he's done when we have not collected data. The time I'm collecting data, he is coming to me and asking, when are the certificates coming out? So I'm thinking, we got you from ESCOM, what are you doing this to us? Because the time I'm collecting data, he's saying, this university should have made a plan so that they've got a staggered way of issuing certificates so that us who have completed can get our certificates before you. Amulife, you are from ESCOM. I didn't know then that this output is referring to that he wants a certificate before I collect data was the book we are celebrating today. I didn't like it. I don't want to lie. I was not very impressed about that because somebody that we stole from ESCOM is now bragging that he has completed this work before me. And I brought him to TUT. But it is what it is. So what Prof. Ben mentioned was just half the story. The whole story is this. The concept of this book was completed the day the course was completed, before some of us even collected data. And he was from ESCOM. So what I had termed this message of support Mulife was that Prof. Mulife was, in essence, an accidental professor. Because if we didn't take that risky decision on a particular day with Thomas Mniss in 2011, I don't think you had been a professor. So, but now the question is, if I had labeled you an accidental professor as you started your career, where you are sitting now, there, are you there by accident? The answer from my observation is no. You are a hard worker, Mulife, very hard worker. I think actually you work too hard. Maybe hard worker is the wrong way. I will tell you in front of people, you work too hard. That is why you are there. You are not a professor by accident. You are an accidental professor, but you are not an associate professor by accident. And I will say this in front of the two DVCs that knowing you, and I know your CV, you tick the boxes of a full professor. I must say that without any reservations. So your hard work, and you have showed it to all of us, you have rubbed it into all of us, has brought you to where you are. Your hard work is what we are celebrating today. You have itchy fingers. You write papers like it is, you are writing a note. The amount of time it takes some of us to write academic papers, when we look at you writing an academic paper, it's like you are writing a quick note on a sticky paper. I am not sure how many papers you have. I don't want to know because they are way more than mine. So let's not go there. And as you sit there knowing you, I have an impression that there's probably another book loading. So your itchiness, mentor others so that others can also learn to write. I refuse to come to you because I think you are a slave driver. I have heard that you are a slave driver, but continue to be an example you are in terms of being an academic. I'm finishing. As I said, I labeled you in the beginning an accidental professor. But now I realize that in essence, what we did was actually opening a door for you to what is indeed your destiny. The good professor. So congratulations on this book. I will never forgive you for wanting a certificate before I collected data. But I will always remind you, you are from ESCOM. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nesambuni, for that message of support. Prof. Malika, may your hard work rub off onto all of us in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move to the congratulatory message and the keynote address. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Ms. Nadia Starr is the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Qualifications Authority, an executive agency of the Ministry of Higher Education and Training. Ms. Starr is a career civil servant with most of her experience in senior management and non-executive director roles in the public sector, working in education and training policy development, quality assurance, and youth skills development. She has previously served as the Chief Executive Officer of a high-performing sector skills council. Ms. Starr holds a bachelor and a postgraduate degree in psychology from the University of Cape Town and a Master of Education from the University of Witwatersrand, along with several occupational certifications. Ms. Starr currently serves as an Executive Director on the board of the South African Qualifications Authority and non-executive director on the national boards of the Human Resource Development Council of South Africa, National Skills Authority, Quality Council for the Trades and Occupations, Councils on Higher Education, Quality Council for General and Further Education and Training, as well as the international leadership roles as the President of the African Continental Qualifications Framework, and non-executive director on the boards of the Groninger Declaration Network and the United States Qualification Framework. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer of the South African National Quality.
Sorry for giving you stress about the time.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. I apologize for putting you through that very long bio. None of that is really, I think, relevant to the conversation today, or much of that is not relevant. I think what is relevant is I come from a TVET system. I have worked in the TVET system. I have worked in skills development for most of my life, and I am not an academic. So I am in esteemed presence here, and I do appreciate the opportunity to engage you as a civil servant and as somebody who appreciates the work that is done at this nexus between, of course, academia and these experiences that change lives on a daily basis. So Program Director, Professor Maleka, leadership and colleagues of Tshwane University of Technology, distinguished guests, members of academia, industry partners, professional bodies, students, learners, lifelong learners like myself, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Is it still? It is. I apologize, I was rushing from Johannesburg from an earlier engagement, and I know I kept the program director wondering, but good morning to you all. It is really an honor and a privilege to join you today, to join you today at the launch of this important and timely publication, Work Integrated Learning, a Human Resource Management Perspective, a Practitioner's Guide. I extend warm congratulations to Professor Maleka for this significant contribution and to TUT for creating a platform where scholarship, practice, and national development can meet in such a meaningful way. A book launch is always more than just the release of text. It is the introduction of an idea into public conversation. It is an invitation to all of us to read, to debate, to apply, and to improve practice, and this one in particular. This book enters our national conversation at exactly the right time, because South Africa continues to face a major challenge. How do we ensure that learning leads not only to certification, but to capability? Not only to knowledge, but to competence, and not only to individual achievement, but to social and economic development. These questions sit at the heart of work-integrated learning. They also sit very close to the heart of the National Qualifications Framework as an instrument for transformation and social justice, and close to our mandate as the South African Qualifications Authority. Allow me today to speak from SAQA's point of view, the perspective of qualifications, learning outcomes, quality, access, mobility, progression, and recognition, and lifelong learning. I want to reflect on why will matters within the South African National Qualifications Framework, the NQF context, and why a human resource management perspective is so valuable, and why the publication we celebrate today can help move us from policy intention to practical implementation. By way of introduction, and I hope many of you don't need to be introduced to SAQA, but we are a statutory body. We were established by a democratic act of parliament, and in fact we were, the SAQA Act of 1995 was the first education act of the democratic parliament. And this is significant because it is an act and a legislative intention that intends to bring things together and create inclusivity, transformation, and equality. We continue to operate under the NQF Act of 2008 as amended, but our mandate has remained the same, and it's simple: to develop and implement the NQF to advance its objectives of transformation, redress, access, mobility, and to coordinate the three sub-frameworks of basic schooling, higher education, where you're all sitting today, and the occupations and trades. The objectives of the NQF, quality, redress, mobility, access, and integration, importantly, remain as relevant today as they were at the founding of the democratic education and training system. The NQF seeks to create, number one, a single integrated national framework for learning achievements. Two, to facilitate access and progression through this framework. Three, to enhance the quality of education and training, to ensure that everybody is allowed access to education of quality and value. Four, significantly to redress to accelerate the redress of past unfair discrimination. And five, to contribute to the full personal development of each learner and to the social and economic development of the nation at large. These objectives are not abstract. They become real when a learner is able to move or articulate from college to university, when a worker's experience can be recognized through the recognition of RPL, recognition of prior learning, RPL, and when a qualification has credibility in the eyes of employers, no matter where it was earned and no matter by whom it was earned. When learning opens doors to decent work, further study, and meaningful participation in society and economy. In this regard, the NQF policy suite provides an important context. Will policies, guidelines, and scholarship like this must be read and is read alongside and implemented against the backdrop of the NQF Act and its policies. Will is not an isolated initiative. It lives within a wider system of recognition, quality, and progression. Importantly, that wider system includes many partners whose collaboration is necessary. SAQA, the Quality Councils, the various departments of higher education, basic education, employment and labor, and others, industries, institutions of learning, organized labors, learners, and communities. No single institution or entity can deliver will alone. A national system requires coordination, shared language, aligned criteria, and a common commitment to quality. Against this backdrop, for SAQA, the significance of will lies precisely in this system-building role. If will is to contribute meaningfully to the NQF objectives, it must be visible and embedded in qualification, design, credible assessment, and it must be coherent across NQF sub-frameworks, recognized by employers and professional bodies, and reportable in ways that tell us what is working and where the gaps remain. These sorts of contributions to the scholarship therefore become so meaningful and so important. It creates spaces to embed will as part of a system of lifelong learning, not a peripheral activity at the end of a program. In the NQF context, will is understood as characteristic of vocational and professionally oriented qualifications that may be incorporated into programs at all levels across the NQF sub-frameworks. It may take different forms, including simulated learning, work-directed, etc., right? And these approaches integrate knowledge, skills, and attitudes in authentic or practice-oriented settings. The breadth is important because will is not just one single model. It is a family of approaches that must be designed in relation to purpose, context, level, credits, learning outcomes, assessment arrangements, and quality assurance requirements. In some contexts, workplace-based learning is the dominant role. In others, simulation, project-based work, or problem-based learning may be more appropriate. What matters is not the label, but the integrity of the design and the quality of the learning experience. The book we launched today speaks directly to this challenge. By locating will within human resource management perspective, Professor Maleka reminds us that the workplace is not a passive host site. The workplace is a learning environment, and I think the Prof before said it also. Where will applies, it should be deliberately designed with equity in mind. If it is designed carefully, will can become a powerful instrument for social mobility, employability, and redress. Beyond access, effective implementation requires attention to quality. Will must be prepared, supervised, assessed, and moderated. It must be supported by agreements that clarify roles and responsibilities. It must comply with relevant legislation, including matters of occupational health and student status. It must be financed realistically, including the costs of placement preparation, site visits, monitoring, assessment, quality assurance, and learner support. And it must create reliable evidence of learning, not simply evidence of attendance. In a rapidly changing world of work, this is no longer optional. Technological change, globalization, new forms of work, shifting skills demands, and persistent unemployment require a system that can adapt. Learners need deep knowledge, but they also need problem-solving ability, communication, judgment, teamwork, ethical awareness, all these things that we've incorrectly labeled soft skills, and the capacity to learn continuously. Employers need graduates who can contribute, but they also have a role in helping to shape, mentor, and develop that contribution. Will is one of the spaces where these needs can be met. Looking ahead, the success of will requires several commitments. First, we need to strengthen partnerships between providers and workplaces so that will is planned, supported, and assessed as a serious component of learning. Second, we need to align will more clearly with qualification design, NQF levels, and credits and learning outcomes. Thirdly, we need to support HR practitioners, mentors, supervisors, so that they're prepared practically through these works for their educational role. And fourth, we need to ensure that will opportunities are inclusive and do not depend only on a learner's agency, networks, or financial resources. Finally, we must improve data, reporting, and evidence so that the system can learn from practice. In addition, professionalization is important, and again, the contribution of works like this. Will practitioners, workplace mentors, and supervisors should be recognized as key actors in the education and training ecosystem. Their work involves specialized expertise, curriculum understanding, workplace learning design, learner support, assessment literacy, reflective practice, and stakeholder coordination, to name just a few. If we want will to succeed, we must ensure will practitioners are professionalized. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, the publication we celebrate today arrives at a moment when South Africa needs stronger bridges. Bridges between school, college, university, and work, bridges between policy and implementation, bridges between public institutions and industry, and bridges between formal learning and the knowledge developed through experience. Will is one such bridge. The NQF gives us a common national language for recognizing learning, and this book brings those conversations closer together. To Professor Maleka, congratulations once again. Your work contributes to a field that is central to the future of education, training, and development in South Africa. It offers guidance not only to academics and students, but to employers, HR practitioners, and policymakers who share responsibility for developing a capable workforce. To TUT, thank you for hosting this launch and for your continued contribution to teaching, learning, research, and innovation. Universities of technology such as yourselves occupy a particularly important place in the world landscape because they've long understood that knowledge and practice must inform and reinforce each other. To all stakeholders present, may this book not remain only on the shelves or in citation lists. May it be used in classrooms, will offices, HR departments, and in the policy spaces that I speak of. May it also inform better agreements, better supervision, better curricula, better assessment, and better learner experiences. At SACWA, we remain committed to working with partners across the system to advance the transformative objectives of the NQF. WIL can make these objectives tangible. It can help ensure that learning is recognized and applied and valued, and it can help learners move with confidence between education, training, and work, build the skills, capabilities, and partnership needed for an inclusive and competitive future. Let us therefore treat today not only as the launch of a book, but as a renewed call for action, to strengthen and enable WIL through collaboration. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. for that insightful keynote address. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the heart of today's celebration. We know that every book has a story behind it, why it was written, what it seeks to contribute, and the journey that brought this book to life, and perhaps mostly what comes next after this journey. So these are some of the conversations that we are about to explore as we engage with the author as well as our discussant. Please join me in welcoming the author, Professor Molefe J. Maleka, together with our discussant, Dr. Rolene Brink.
Thank you, Program Director. All protocol observed. Good morning, colleagues. For me, it is an honor and a privilege, Prof, to sit next to you with the launch of this very important book. This is, to the knowledge of work-integrated learning in South Africa, one of the most important, I think one of the first, that is practical, that we can work practical on. So this publication makes a significant contribution to the field of work-integrated learning, not only in human resource management. Yes, it's a human resource management, but when I start reading this book, it's actually for all fields within higher education. So it addressed the question that is central to all of us gathered here today. And the question is, how do we prepare our students not only to graduate with a qualification, but to adapt, to contribute, and succeed in an increasingly complex world of work? I want to highlight 3 of the key themes that stood out for me. And one of the key themes that stood out for me is the importance of bridging the gap between the theory and the practice. Professor Maleka reminds us that employability is not achieved through classroom learning alone. Students become workplace ready when they are provided with meaningful opportunities to apply knowledge in an authentic workplace setting. This is particularly relevant in South Africa, where graduate employability remains a national priority. If we look at the unemployment rate in South Africa. The second important theme is the employability is a shared responsibility. This book emphasized that universities, employers, mentors, and I want to highlight mentors, professional bodies, government, all have a role to play in the development of our future talent in the world of work. The third theme that resonates strongly is the need to prepare future ready fit graduates. The book highlights emerging competencies such as people analytics, business acumen, emotional intelligence, very important for our students, artificial intelligence, and it challenges us to rethink what skills graduates will require in a rapidly changing world. But the highlight in this book for me, and it's very close to my heart and my philosophy as well, is the mentorship role with work integrated learning. This model capture, and if you read the book, it's figure 2.1. This model capture what I believe is essence to effective work integrated learning. It demonstrates that successful workplace learning is not simply about placing a student in the organization. It is about creating meaningful developmental relationships through coaching and mentoring and guiding and feedback and support. This figure resonates strongly with my own philosophy. While curricula provide knowledge, it's often through mentorship that students develop confidence, professional identity, resilience, workplace judgments, and the ability to navigate complex organizational environments. Professor Maleka, work reminds us that preparing graduates for the future requires more than a qualification. Your qualification doesn't give you success in the world of work. It requires collaboration, mentorship, innovation, and shared commitment to the student's success. Congratulations on this wonderful and remarkable achievement, Prof. Maleka. So, I think before I ask you a couple of questions, or can I carry on with my questions?
No.
I asked him if he wants to present, and he said to me he wants to have it informal. So my first question is, Prof, listening to Dr. Nesamvuni and Prof Ben this morning, I only know you for the last 3 years. I only at TUT for the last 3 years. So work integrated learning is my passion. And when Prof. Maleka asked me to write the foreword for this book, I was really honored because it is something very close to my heart. And my first question is, what motivates you to write this book?
Before I can say anything, I also want to speak from the heart. Because everybody has been speaking from the heart. No man is an island. We are created by people. You see what Dr. Nesamvuni was saying? He was also economic with the truth. Because firstly, when I started, I was enrolled on this program. I was an HOD at People Management and Development. And then in 2019, that's when my contract of an HOD came to an end. But as a good man as he is, he also insisted that I should do an MBA. And then that's how this wave was paved. Yeah. So the reason that I and Prof. Van Wyk completed ahead of everybody was because I was not in an academic role. I was solely focusing on this. And then after that, I went to him and said, where is my certificate? And he said, but what are you talking about? Because I haven't collected data. And then also, we also want to thank Sis Fuyo, because also she was the one who also opened doors for us. Because all of the cohort that were in there, her and the previous DVC, Professor Mukola, were the ones who came with this program of Hakahelia. Now, the question is the motivation. Also, before I can do further crime, is I also want to acknowledge my elders, as we call them, Prof. Van Wyk and Professor Vati, for the opportunity, and I really appreciate your presence. And now I'm going to talk like a politician, all protocol observed. Okay, the motivation was interesting because no, motivation cannot be interesting. What motivated me was that at Hakahelia we were allocated supervisors. And I came with this theoretical question that I wanted to address. And the supervisor told me that, but no, at Hakahelia we issue applied qualification. So we don't want you to come with a theory. It's either you are going to create a service, you are going to improve a process, or you are going to create a product. So what product do you have to produce? And at that time, it was after TUT was, we moved from NATED to HEQS alignment. And then at that time, work integrated learning was part of it. Then she said to me that, Mrs. Anu Santala, now we are talking, because you are talking about the product. The product in this case is work integrated learning. Now we need to rephrase your question. Don't come and tell me about theoretical framework. Because at Hakahelia, we don't deal about theoretical framework. Then I got even more confused and said, what is it that you want from me? Then he said, no, but you told me that you worked previous in industry. So let's rather focus on the skills. I said, now you are talking. And I was labeled a slave driver. I think the slave driver was the supervisor, because when she gave me an email or a conversation via Zoom, she wanted timelines and no excuses. So if we meet this week, next week you must produce something. And she was not interested in the theories. She wanted to know, because already TUT has got HEQS aligned. How are you putting yourself in the shoes and as an HOD? Are you going to create a work integrated learning? I don't want theoretical frameworks. I want the program. So coming from a traditional university, at UJ they used to have students of industrial psych. I come from industrial sociology. So the student of industrial psych, when they go and do their will program, they had a program. So she said, no, take what you have. What is it in HR? I said in HR is OD and learning and development. Then she said you can allocate it on your will 33%. What is another module? Labor relation 30%, the other one 33%. And when you calculate them, they give you 99%, and then when you round it off, it becomes HR. 100%. So she said that, no, this is what I want from you. Don't come and tell me theories. Then she said, no, because you are an academic and you have been out of the industry for quite some time, you are not going to be very helpful. Let's rather use an inductive and a grounded theory approach. Go and get people from the industry, those who are in OD and learning and development. Go and get somebody who's in labor relations, and go and get somebody in remuneration and benefits. They are going to give you the skills that are needed. So that's how the book was motivated. And I must say she was giving me a hard time because she wanted to complete. And I think Hagahelia also had the expectation that since we were the first cohort in South Africa, they wanted this program to work. So there were no slip-ups that one have to do. So that also motivated me. And I also come from, I've worked at Nissan South Africa for almost 10 years. And that on that 10 years, 7 years of it, I was a graduate coordinator. So I used to come at Pretoria Technikon some years ago, University of Pretoria. I've been to Rand Africans everywhere. What I could see, especially during interviews, was that when you start asking students questions, they start biting their nails. They couldn't have what we call in psychology self-efficacy, and then those are the things. So that's actually, and then what I started doing, as Dr. Edgar said, I've got the curiosity mind. I went to the library, Googled. There was no book that was focusing on skill-based, but most of them, they were focusing on theoretical part of work integrity. And TUT is an applied university. So we had to come with something that is going to be groundbreaking.
That's wonderful. I want to thank Dr. Nisanvuni to appoint Prof. Maleleka because that was actually the perfect appointment. Because I believe that we need people like Prof. Maleka with industry experience in order to be the right mentors for our students. So, Prof. Maleka, can you just give us a overview, a high-level overview of the key themes that you covered within the book? So just to tease for the people to please read this book. There's not just read by reading it, but applying this book in your curriculum. And it's not only for HR, really. It is for all disciplines. Prof?
Thanks. I think one of the key themes when I was engaging people from industry was that the students that they engage with, not only at TUT, but all over, students, they lack what they call business acumen. So what is business acumen? Business acumen is student who's curious, who want to know what the company is all about. That is number one. Number two, students who understand financial statements. Not how to calculate the formulas per se, but they must be able to understand how do they work. Like, for example, students should understand what is the meaning of CPI, if we can use it as an example. Because if you talk about the CPI, Consumer Price Index, if the company is paying employees below that Consumer Price Index, what does that mean? It means somebody is going to get poor. Their purchasing power is going to diminish. That is number one. Number two, they also spoke about, I think Ms. Nadia warned about calling soft skills, but can you permit me to use the word soft skill? That's what they called soft skill. They said most of the students that they engage with, they come with theory because you teach them theory, they know what they're talking about. But what they lack most is things like time management. A person doesn't come to an interview on time. They also talked about work ethic. I remember one manager was telling me vividly that she hired one of the Will students at her company, and then she told the Will student to go and print papers for the interviews. And the Will student refused and saying, I am a graduate from X university. I don't print papers.
Sure.
She also told me that as much as you teach your students theory, but there's something that your students are lacking. And one of the things that they spoke about is Excel skills. Because a student in HR need to know how to manipulate formulas. And then they said that your students, they lack basic mathematical understanding. Like if you can say, what is the expenditure or labor as an expenditure of labor cost as an expenditure, as a percentage of expenditure. They were lost. They didn't understand. What is the total number of employees, students? They were not aware of. So those are, they said, are the skills. The other one that they said that students from HR, they also need to understand matrices, like matrices or like time to hire. How does it affect employee? Quality of hire, all those kinds of things that they spoke about. And the other thing is that when I was still doing that, I got exposed in what is called generative AI. Students